Okay. Yeah.
A sliver of sun, a trick of the trade, hole in the wall, edge of a blade.
Hello, and welcome to Open Studio, a podcast from the Arts Council of Princeton, spotlighting the creative minds shaping our cultural landscape. We sit down with the artists, makers, and creative thinkers from our community to talk about the work they do and the ideas that inspire them. Co-hosted by the Director of Development and Community Engagement, Liza Peck, and by me, Adam Welch, Executive Director. Open Studio invites you into the stories behind the art.
Golden is recognized as the longtime president of Princeton University Investment Company, Princo, where he spent 3 decades shaping one of the most successful university endowments in the world. But beyond the numbers and the institutional impact, there's a lesser-known dimension to Golden's life, one that reveals a more personal and creative side, his work as a photographer and his interest in philosophy. Golden joined Princo in 1995. At that time, the endowment was valued at $3.5 billion, and today it is a whopping $35 billion. That's billion with B. Under his leadership, Princeton's portfolio expanded dramatically, more than tenfold. In 2021, he and his team achieved a 46.9% return. That's crazy. Embracing a strategy that emphasized alternative investments such as venture capital, private equity, and hedge funds. His approach was grounded in long-term thinking, helping the endowment grow into an engine supporting the university's teaching, research, and financial aid programs. While Golden built a reputation in global finance, photography is a counterbalance, a quieter pursuit. His interest in photography speaks to a deeper curiosity about the world, one that extends beyond markets and into moments, light, and human experience. It's a practice that requires patience, observation, and a willingness to see things from unexpected angles. He was, after all, a philosophy major in school. Golden's engagement with photography aligns with a broader pattern among leaders who cultivate creative outlets alongside analytical careers. One might think about Winston Churchill, who was an avid painter. Jimmy Carter, too, was an amateur painter. Queen Victoria has been said to keep a sketchbook at hand. Even George Bush Jr. has proven to be a talented painter. For Golden, the camera becomes another lens through which to interpret the complexities of the world. Before his tenure at Princeton, Golden developed his investment foundation at Duke Management Company and in the investments office at Yale University. He studied philosophy at Duke, an academic background that hints at his lifelong interest in big questions and careful reasoning, and later earned his master's in public policy and management through Yale School of Management. He is also a chartered financial analyst, underscoring his technical expertise in finance. Once asked if there was a goose hiding in the offices of Princo, Golden said, "I have to be silent on that. Silence is golden." Let's see if we can get him to open up about this and more. So please join me and Liza Peck as we speak with Andy in our studios at the Arts Council of Princeton.
Water is spilling, reservoir run dry, my days are filling, my heart is a tunnel, my back is laughing, my tongue a funnel, my pulse in traffic.
You're just, I'm going to spill something. Like,
Yes.
we'll see how it does with whiskey.
Exactly.
Well, we have-
right.
we
Should
have-
we just try it out right now?
Yeah, we should. Let's not. Let me get the cheap whiskey to dump on.
Let's not spill that guy.
Let's get that cheap stuff I leave in my cabinet.
No. Life's too short.
So
Do you mind my thing?
if you want
okay,
ice,
do mind my thing. Do
and
you?
then
Good.
here-
Adam, you got all
Yeah,
set
I
up.
do.
Homemade ceramic cups.
I use a little ice.
Love
Wow.
it.
This is not from an iceberg or anything? It's not jetted in from...
Yeah, we
Greenland.
flew from
Is that how you
Alaska.
like it?
Alaska. I only get my ice from Alaska because the and I get my tongs.
Try to
From,
hit
I get
the
my
chair.
tongs from Alaska.
Yeah, no tongs. Tongue you very much.
I usually,
That is such a non-profit tongue right there.
I just usually use.
Can't
my
we do
hands.
better?
All right.
Usually we use our hands, but you know.
Yeah,
with
we've got a
guests-
guest in the
with
house.
guests, it's gonna be sophisticated. I even cleaned the office today.
He really did.
Wow.
And I'm happy that he cleaned the office. It needed
Oh
to
my
happen.
goodness.
But I actually wanted you to see And maybe I can take Auntie
Take
to
him
see
downstairs.
it. Gada Amir's, Gada Amir of the artist from the print that we sent
Yeah.
out. She's been working with Adam
Your favorite podcast guest so far.
so far.
Yeah.
Thank you. But today's a new day. She is making these.
I was gonna say cheers and
Cheers.
shoot it
Cheers.
down. Cheers.
Wait, this is not a shot.
I'm just kidding. It's
Okay.
half a shot. Cheers. Get the clink on there. It's good.
Oh, clink.
It's nice.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Yeah,
surrounds.
like the sound.
I like mother's milk.
I feel like I can speak French now.
That is
Fluently.
tasty.
Yes.
That is tasty.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right.
Well, anyway, now down to business. You said that several times.
I know.
Makes me nervous.
I know. Once I got the thought in my head, it made me nervous it was going to happen, but it didn't. We're safe. It's all
But
safe.
you have a blowtorch here.
Yes.
Not really a blowtorch,
That's a little tiny torch. I use it for a lot of things. You used it.
for
I
lighting a
loved
cigarette.
it.
Yes.
Yes.
For lighting our joints.
From across the room.
Smoking's bad for you. We don't smoke cigarettes here. Smoking's deadly.
It is a lot of fun to work with a blowtorch.
Yep.
Yeah.
We use it for
I'll leave it there.
Yeah. No, my kids loved it growing up.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
a great
there's-
toy.
joints, cigarettes, or blowtorch.
No, obviously, once they can walk, you want to give
Yeah,
them
exactly.
something
This will keep
flammable.
them busy all day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The stoves are too tall, and electrical outlets are. That's not
Yeah.
real burn.
Exactly.
you know?
Blowtorch,
Yeah.
anyone can use it.
Yeah.
So that's a ceramic based tool. So we use that for ceramics a lot. I keep it in here because it goes missing periodically. So
People huffing.
yeah, people huffing.
I don't know anything about it going missing. Nothing to do with that.
Where's the potpourri? Where's our Lysol? Everyone's huffing these days. Oh, that brought me back. What else do I got over there?
I don't know. It sounds like you can tell an old saw.
Yeah, this is my Duchampian reference. Even though Duchamp never did a saw, he did a piece. Are you familiar with Marcel Duchamp's work? So he's all
It's all the rage now.
Yeah, it's all the rage.
All the
he's
rage.
come back around, I think, because he's having a solo at the
At Philadelphia?
at MoMA.
Oh,
At
MoMA.
MoMA.
Oh, right,
I
MoMA.
was just at MoMA.
And
Monday.
was it already there? Oh, right.
Maybe the tour was of just their permanent collection. So,
Oh.
but
So it may have
the
been
posters
there,
were there, but I don't know if they were saying coming or they're. I think it must have been here.
So it's gotten a lot of attention, but it's the same. I mean, it's in Philly. It's like most of his collection is in permanent installation in Philly. So, it coming up to New York, New Yorkers don't make it to Philly. So I guess it's very
would they?
new.
Yeah.
And the urinal
Just kidding, I love
fountain.
Philly.
I love Philly too.
Me too.
The fountain is getting a resurgence. Do you love Philly?
I do.
Philly, we love you.
lived in Philly for 3 years.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. And my son lived there for a couple of years.
It's a nice place.
It's a great city.
And it's still affordable. But anyway, so this is a nod to Duchamp's in advance of a broken arm, but that was a snow shovel. And somebody gave me this saw, and I said, yeah.
Kind of
Feels
a Duchamp
Duchampian.
statement. Yeah.
In advance of losing
Some
your
fingers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it.
All right, I think we're done.
So kind of
Good.
I think this has been
good
good.
tip.
All right. Thanks so much for being here.
Oh,
Andy.
thank you very much.
Bye.
We like to keep things short.
Yeah.
That was 7 minutes.
That is not what we do over here. As you can
true.
see, it takes
Yeah.
a while even just to get going.
What I've realized with Liza, though she's a great co-host, with me,
Raconteur.
we write these questions down, and then we get through one of them, and then
This is true.
Okay.
And I have been working on not interrupting. But these are really interesting
Please
conversations.
interrupt.
Sometimes,
Yeah, they can.
and also I might take a couple photos for
should-
Fiona's sake. Fiona has
Yeah.
asked me.
I should also take a photo because I don't know if you've gotten in any of the photos. I'm just
I have,
making sure
I have,
this is
I
turned
have.
down to mute off. Okay. Well, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
Let me
Well,
just let
good
them
for
know that
you.
we're. Let me let them know that we're starting.
Do you have a
crazy
red
talk.
light that goes on? Like, you don't have to put out your red light.
Well, it's funny. It's quiet. It can be quiet in here all day,
A little too quiet.
And
and
then
then
it
all of a
gets
sudden,
going.
it's like we start
Yeah.
recording. The AC's not on. I can tell, but we did an interview. Was it 2 days ago? And we were sitting here, and for some reason, the air conditioning kicked on, and it went to jet. I fell
Yeah.
over backwards. I I was like,
There's no editing.
Flashback.
yeah, it was a flashback. That was an LSD, not the mushrooms. Anyway, so
But
we
also
just,
welcome.
yeah. Oh yeah, thank you.
Welcome.
Oh, thank you.
Welcome, Andy Golden. Thanks for being with
My
us.
pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
For making the trip.
Oh,
We
are we
felt
on?
quite
Are we,
fortunate.
we're live?
We've
we're on this whole time.
We've been recording this whole time. I was going to ask a few questions
So,
about
okay.
political, but
Oh.
while we don't know, he didn't know we were live.
Off script. He's
That's
going
cool.
off script.
No, it was before
No.
now he knows we're live.
Exactly. You're gonna
Yeah.
gotcha moment.
We did that to the last
Yes.
candidate, but
Oh, nice. Okay.
You ready to go?
yeah.
Check.
Okay, you
ready?
start.
Okay, I'll
You
start.
start.
I'm starting. Okay. So, a question that we like to begin with is, what's your favorite word?
Kindness.
That's rare. That's a rare word.
Well, it's rare to see.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's rare to experience, but not at the Arts Council.
Not here.
Yeah. Kindness all day. You're up.
I'm going.
That was
next.
mine.
Okay.
Yeah. You go next. This
He's
is a
really
good one.
like sharing the mic more than ever.
This is a good
now.
one. Well, I've got this to keep me company.
Okay. I'll be co-hosting more than ever today.
Well, no, I'll go.
In fact, I think I might be hosting.
I'll go so you don't have to get your glasses on.
No, that's okay.
All right. Number 2.
Okay. Yes. So we know that you started out as a photographer, and which is super interesting given where you ended up career-wise. And tell us a little bit about how that shift happened.
My trip.
The trip.
Yeah.
The journey.
I don't like the word journey.
Okay. The trip.
The trip. Journey is like this, like so many things. It refers
This
back
is like
to
a
a
trip.
better
You just got on
cultural.
a plane, you got off, you're there. It's on a journey that you're on forever.
Like that, yeah. That's so I was really into photography since I was a wee lad. Rainy day, nothing to do. I'm the youngest child. My middle brother had once gotten a darkroom kit, and
Darkroom kid.
I discovered, which is not the important part of the darkroom. Important part of the darkroom is the dark room.
The dark room is really all you need, right?
Yeah. It's,
But it's exciting to have a trace.
it doesn't work well.
There's something
In the
missing
lights.
here. I'm not sure what it
Exactly.
is. Or there's something present here, not missing, something present.
I don't mean to make light of this.
Nice.
Okay, so in conclusion, that just turned me on, and as a boy growing up, I really got into art. In order to learn how to do the technique, I had these monthly magazines, and they had your reference to art, which includes my exposure to Edward Weston, who is like a canonical photographer. And I said, I really want to be like that. But, that's not an easy life to have. I go off to college, become a philosophy major, start doing less or stop doing more photography for a while because I was doing whatever college students do, other than most college students go to class. That wasn't me, but I did a lot of the other stuff.
Plenty of other things to do at college.
Yeah. But in my senior year, I got this opportunity, even though I had never worked on the college yearbook, to be editor-in-chief, basically the whole staff. And it's at Duke, it was a pure photographic experience, so that reminded me how much I liked photography. So I said, I'm going to really go for it. But, to support myself, I ended up, having to do day jobs of various types, bartending, carrying heavy things in the theater.
This is such a new concept, an artist having to figure out another way
Well,
to pay the bill.
I'm waiting to hear the end of the story because I'm still perplexed by Andy saying he wasn't sure how to make a living as a photographer, so he went into philosophy.
Yeah.
Let me find something a little bit more practical.
We're going to unpack that when he's done because right now it's nonsensical.
Well, the dream was to open up my own import-export philosophy business. I was going to buy and sell used philosophies. It's really more in the spread.
So you were interested in French philosophy.
Kind of like an offshoot of fortune cookie making.
Yeah. I ended up getting a day job in photography and actually in graphic arts. And that really got me excited. For personal reasons, to follow my then fiance, I moved to Philadelphia. She had started law school, and I took the first job I could get, where I was working in the in-house advertising group for a department store chain. And I ended up getting involved in management. I think my official title was assistant to the manager, but
Not assistant manager.
not assistant manager. But
Let me check the resume here and make sure that it's written right.
And that got me interested in organizations and the way they could work better. So I applied to get management training at the only place that would have someone like me, the Yale School of Management. And I got in. But a funny thing happened to me on the way to New Haven. I deferred my admittance for a year and decided to try something completely different. So I answered an ad in the newspaper, took a math test, and went to work for a very small money management firm. And I learned that markets are kind of cool. It was kind of like, some people like to watch basketball. You can include me in that, but it was kind of like, every day I was intensely watching a market. And that was interesting. Not so interesting that I wanted to stay in that job. Mm-hmm. So I go off to New Haven. I thought, well, maybe investing as opposed to organizational management is for me. But in
in the organizational management program, are people there for that purpose?
It's one program. It was particularly true in those days. It remains somewhat true that Yale had a distinctive vision for management training, and it was that the skills that enable great management in the private sector are transferable to the public sector, and public sector to the nonprofit. It was just, we're going to train people, drawing them from all of these sectors. They'll learn from each other, and then they'll go off. Most in the first year go off to McKinsey or Goldman Sachs, but it's actually a pretty good track record. They're doing that to pay back some things they're doing to get some credibility. But it's actually got a very good track record of creating leaders for the other sectors.
So those two things were happening separately. It wasn't that you were starting to be a little bit more interested in the investment world.
So my classwork transcended sectors, but management programs in general have this feature of the day you land, they're tutoring you how to get a job. Mm-hmm. And so you begin to think about that pretty quickly. And I had heard about this new concept called socially responsible investing. And I thought, well, that sounds...
Where did that concept come from? Was that a Yale concept?
No, it was just out in the zeitgeist.
And this is late 80s or?
This is mid to late 80s, yeah. Late 80s. The SRI, social responsible investing, it can be looked up, but I suspect that's early to mid 80s, getting a little bit traction. It's morphed into, very few people say that anymore. It's ESG or something else like it.
What was socially responsible in the late 80s, 90s?
So what had happened is, I think what awakened a lot of folks to this was apartheid.
Oh, okay.
Right. And so it was kind of like, well, we're not going to do that.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's so interesting. That was the biggest sort of impactful kind of understood inequality, I think.
Yeah. And then, churches had certain things. So it could be tobacco. So it was all kind of cousins to the causes that took place over time at campuses.
Of course.
So anyhow, I had heard, management program, 2 years, every first year gets assigned a big sibling in the second year. And my guy said, there's a guy who just started work at the Yale Investments Office who his job right before, he'd done community economic development. And, I had so little clue, even despite the year in the money management firm as to any of this stuff. I thought those two things sounded kind of similar. They're very much not. But I went off for an informational interview with a then young man named Dean Takahashi. Dean was his name, not his university title.
Such an interesting name to have at a university.
Yeah. And
Who are you? I'm Dean.
yeah, major. He convinced me like 45 seconds that it was a really dubious concept, and in any case, it probably wouldn't be a fulfilling career. And he used what I later called the toaster oven argument, which is, and only people of a certain age even know what a toaster oven is, but toaster ovens don't toast as well as toasters, and they don't bake as well as ovens. And so
what do they do?
What do they compromise, but at least in the toaster oven, you know what the trade-off is. But that's less true when you're saying, oh, I'm going to take a lower return in exchange for doing good. Like, how much is the right amount of a lower return? Or as some will say, oh, you'll be able to have both. You'll be able to get a higher return. It's like, well, that's kind of a funky analysis of optimization. It's very rarely when you add a constraint to it.
Right.
To an optimization, do you expand the possibilities?
I want to come back to that, but I can see how that's true in the financial world, but art is all about constraints. And it's the limitations in art. It seems like once you have limitations on you, whether it's the material medium or whatever genre you're working with.
Yeah, I think I think it's a really interesting point, and I think haiku is very interesting, even though it's completely constrained. I think there, though, you are optimizing for a collection of stuff, whether it's emotions that are evoked or beauty or statements. In investing, it kind of boils down. You're optimizing on one dimension.
Exactly.
Show me the money.
Yeah.
Right. And so, it's like you can say to a chef, make me the best possible meal that you can make, and she can come up with something wonderful. And you say, well, now I only want you to use ingredients that begin with the letter A.
Right.
And it may be an amazing meal, right? But it's hard to believe that it's better than the other one because, by the way, if it is, she could have done it in the first place anyway, right? Yeah. Nothing was constraining her from doing that.
So what was Dean's philosophy? What was his approach?
Dean is incredibly smart, incredibly good natural thinker about investing, and his idea was we should make a lot of money and then spend it on doing good. And that wasn't, that concept taken to the extreme is something I think is silly called effective altruism. Like, it doesn't really matter how you spend your day making money as long as you give it away well. It's like, well, I'm not so sure about that. But anyway, what he said.
Effective altruism?
Yeah. What he said was that if I wanted to do good while investing, they were looking for an intern in the office.
At the Yale.
At the Yale Investments Office, which was responsible for investing the Yale endowment. And I just lucked out. I ended up landing at the equivalent of ground zero of a revolution that was just starting. I was like, time.
So this is a
2 + 2.
recognizable turning point.
Yeah. For geeks who care about institutional investing, for what's called being an asset allocator, where your job is to take a pile of dough and divvy it out to external specialist firms. This is like being at Mount Sinai, and Dave Swenson, Dean were coming down from the mountain with the tablets of like, these are the rules of how you should do it.
And this is still late 80s.
This is, yes, I started as an intern. I shook hands in late 87. I started in January of 88 and worked there 20 plus hours a week as a student, and then stayed there in the summer, and then stayed there post because it was like the greatest job you can imagine. It was like intellectually incredibly challenging. It was entrepreneurial. We were figuring out how to do something in a new way, and we were doing good. Right.
And it sounds like it felt like you knew that something different was happening.
There's something
And that's a
happening
pretty
here.
exciting
But
feeling.
did you know it then something different was happening, or did you, or
Sounds
do
like
you
it
know
felt
it now?
that way.
No. Definitely knew it then.
Okay.
I didn't know how big a deal it would be. I thought it would be like an obscure thing that there are people who collect Triumph cars and they understand that, you know, the TR7 was quite different from a Spitfire, but no one else cares, right? And I thought it'd be like that.
Wow.
You know, there'd be a, but you know, it kind of became a little bit to my chagrin, this thing that has a lot more notoriety than I would have ever expected.
And so this was a paradigm shift in investment strategies at universities or across the board.
Yeah, so it started at universities, but then the performance was so good and so different that everyone began to look to what is called the endowment model. I mean, some call it the Yale model, which, you know, was kind of an interesting prototype for the Princeton model.
So this is where
That was said with, for those who can't see, that was said with a little smirk.
Yes.
we can always
I
bring
should
it
have
back to
taken a photo
Princeton.
right then.
We can always bring it back to
I
Princeton.
gotten that on film.
So I'm going to rewind because we're still talking about the
I'm sorry.
the photography. No.
This is just how it goes. We
This is
rarely
the
get
journey.
past question 2.
Yeah, this is the journey. So no, sorry, this is the trip.
This is the trip.
This is
man.
the trip.
This is the trip.
This is the trip.
Yeah.
I'll go back and edit out the journey comment.
No, that's okay. I like it.
I'll go back. This
it
is the
in.
trip.
Keep it in.
Yeah.
So, well, I think we covered a lot of ground, but before we leave photography totally, what was it about the camera? What was it about? What kind of okay, since I don't have an example, what kind of photos were you taking? What was it about photography?
Yeah.
Bad is good.
Yeah.
Wait, bad in the 80s was good.
Yeah, exactly.
Can we just go back to the journey trip thing just for a second?
Yeah. Give it to me.
Journey is done with like yoga pants.
Okay.
Yes.
Trip is done with tie dye.
Yeah.
And so that's
Yeah.
that's really what.
Yeah. I love it.
And I didn't mean
Or
that to be
trips is
gender,
done
but it's just
with like
yeah,
whatever's most comfortable.
yeah.
Yeah.
Lululemon. I shouldn't say
Yeah.
yoga. I should
Yeah.
just say it's.
Well, then
we have
we're
to pay
picking a
them.
brand.
Yeah. Okay.
And they, so journey, trip.
What about photography? What kind of photography does?
Yeah. What kind of photography were you doing then? What were you inspired by? Were you mimicking what you were inspired by, or did you have your own? Did you feel like you had your own aesthetic?
I definitely have my own aesthetic. It's much more open to debate whether I had any talent, but I had a recognizable vision because it was so technique oriented that the technique itself literally leapt off the page. And the
I feel like
technique,
there's so many analogies here to
But is it-
your career, but
yeah,
But is it-
keep talking for?
But is it technique in the photography process, or in the setting up the still life and using the camera, or was it the post production techniques?
it was post production. So the gimmick, the shtick that I had developed, no pun intended, was I shot in black and white.
Okay.
And I had become really quite good technically in the darkroom and in things like halftone processes, and I would do various things to get the black and white image onto watercolor paper.
Okay.
And then I would hand color with the watercolors, which looked very different from, most people who were hand coloring were using special Marshall's photo oils, and it creates that kind of old timey look. This is kind of like blotches, and I did it mainly because I never learned how to draw, so it was.
At this point, did you technically learn how to work in a dark room, or was this all self-taught? Dating back to when your brother got that kit, like.
Yeah, the black and white photography was all self-taught. Actually, the halftone making was self-taught. Actually, the sensitometry of running an E6, meaning color slide ectochrome line, that was pretty self-taught. I mean, there was a book, but
Yeah, you said you had the magazines that you were looking at on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
But it also seems like tons of this is trial and error. You're not really going to learn it from reading it. You're going to have to manipulate and play.
Did you have photography in high school?
No.
Like a photo class? Okay.
No.
All right.
No. I involuntarily took a gap semester between high school and college, meaning I've already mentioned I went to Duke, at the time Duke had this program saying, if you're on the wait list, we'll take you guaranteed if you're willing to start in January. So wait a semester and that'll help us manage our
intake.
Yeah. So I did that. So I took one class at the International Center of Photography, which was a new entity at that time. And then in my senior year in college, I took a class that was not technique at all. It was aesthetic. And that's the sum total of my external education.
And then in college, you switched at some point for lifestyle reasons from photo to philosophy.
No, I became a philosophy major literally the first week. I walked into class and there was an amazing teacher. And I said, I'm going to take every course this guy teaches. That was 3 courses. Wow. You only need 8 to major. You know, how do you make a decision about whether you're going to major in? Well, good, check. I'm going to do everything that...
That's also that's a great entryway study. To study philosophy could lead you in a lot of much more practical directions.
Well, I think it's very good at teaching you how to think. I think, and that turns out to be pretty helpful. It's very good at forcing you to examine, well, what are the real premises upon which you're building your reasoning? Are any of those hidden? And you look at investing, even if you're just investing in assets and trying to find a new way to look at that, is a recipe for advantage. What allocators do, what we did at Princo, is we're not so much deciding that I want to invest in Meta and, sell IBM. We're saying we want to give money to this group and give them license to invest it as they wish. And so we're organizing around how do you think about organizations? How do you think about people? And again, that ability to step back and reframe.
So part of this comes from the philosophy lane, but is this a lot of what you were talking about in that internship at Yale, and this new sort of...
No, the internship at Yale was the opportunities were so big honking, like you didn't have to get too deep. It was, well, there's this thing called venture capital. We're doing a little bit of that, but why don't we do more of it? Because it's really tailored to the circumstances of a perpetual fund and a fund that has intelligent governance and has a network that gets you access to the very best. So that there were things that were not so much about reframing or thinking about hidden premises as just dealing with very obvious things about how do we align interests. People think I know a lot about investments, and I know a little bit about it, but I'm actually much better at understanding less than you would think, but I'm much better understanding what are called agency issues. The stuff that crops up when a principal, say someone who has wealth, hires an agent to manage that wealth. And, the agent will always have more information than the principal has and can use it to his or her advantage. And if, not with the highest scruples, can do it to the disadvantage. So figuring out how to mitigate some of the issues around that is if it's not a wealth creator, it's an avoidance of wealth destroyer.
So building a team of trust.
Yeah, so team is important in this in many different layers. By definition, you're giving it to a bunch of different teams. But if it's a sizable enough pool, then there's going to be several decision makers involved in who to allocate to. So at Princo, when I left, we had maybe 24 or so investment decision makers. We happened to operate as a team, that we weren't parceling within the firm. We were one team, one dream, and trying to gang tackle, as they say. Before we leave, this alignment of interest, which is kind of a term of art in law, but certainly it's understood. I like to think about a cousin to that, which is what I call alignment of appetites. So interests can be shaped by contractual structures. But talking about appetites, it's natural. It's kind of about motivation. So I want the folks who are working in my stead to actually have similar drives. Like, if you look at the investment management world, you can create two buckets. The much smaller one, the one that we want to hitch our wagons to, are the investment managers who want to create the most value, have the highest returns, because that's how they show that they're special. And they do that subject to making themselves silly, stupid, rich. Right. But, a lot of investment managers are going to prove how wonderful they are by just making themselves as rich as possible, subject to producing returns that are good enough to keep that going.
So going back to your team and your Princo team, I hope it's fair to say that you are known for sort of your creativity in the employment arena.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that? And I know that you did not follow traditional hiring protocol for your team.
Yeah, I think most organizations overweight relevant experience, right? So they're looking for people who kind of already...
You don't have that problem here.
Yeah. And, there are some human activities where that's really good. If you need a surgeon,
exactly,
you kind of want to go to the surgeon who has done the exact same procedure.
Don't really care
many times yesterday.
About how creative they are.
Right. But in a lot of activities, it's very easy to catch up on the field-specific knowledge. And so, the investment world is one of many that's fraught with sports metaphors. But they're useful for a reason. So I'd say you want to hire the best athletes and see if you can get them up to speed on the particular game that you're playing. So, we cared a lot about diversity of thinking. I'll still say, because no government can penalize me for it, that diversity of thinking often correlates with diversity of backgrounds, right? It's a lot easier to come at something differently than someone else if you actually have come up differently from someone else. But it can be something as simple as, what did you spend the bulk of your time studying in school? And, not surprisingly, we hired a bunch of philosophy majors, but we also hired a bunch of people from, the Woodrow Wilson program, but it's now called SPIA. We hired a bunch of people from Middle Eastern Studies, or Near Eastern Studies, I think it's called. And what we're just looking for is, I would much rather get the person who got a prize for their thesis in politics, than someone who would just study economics, or state it more clearly. I want both of them, and I want to create an environment where they have a really ton of respect for each other, feeling that they can learn from each other.
And would you say that, is there one sort of characteristic that unifies all these different interests and strengths?
Yeah, I mean, you asked me at the beginning what my favorite word is, and I'm kind of regretting what I went with, because I think curiosity is a pretty important one. And that's one. I think there's, there's stuff that maybe should go without saying, but intellectual integrity, period, but intellectual integrity. But what distinguishes them? I had a favorite interview question that was designed to get people to realize that they had made an assumption that wasn't correct. And then when it was pointed out to them, to see how they reacted to it. So it was basically said, imagine yourself 10 years from now, professionally, give me the 3 highest scenarios for what you're going to be doing. Butcher, baker, candlestick maker, and then tell me what the probability is of each of those. And most people in that situation will say butcher, baker, candlestick maker, and it'll be 60, 30, 10. It will add up to 100%. At which point I'd say, well, it's good it doesn't add up to more than 100%, because while you have to be you can't be more than you. But you're also saying that there's no possibility of
Anything else. This is it.
Yeah. So do you want to rethink that? And there's a lot of information. And first of all, the correct, the best response is someone who just smiles and says, that is so cool. I hadn't thought about that. That's like, so
Hired.
I guess the curiosity relates to what can be called the growth mindset, that you're actually just excited about learning, as opposed to having to prove that you're smart.
Well, I mean, you also sort of alluded to that in your discussion of, hiring someone that got an award for their thesis, though it was in Near East Studies or whatever, had nothing to do with investing or economics or whatever. So you sort of, it seems like, look for people who thrive and are passionate in whatever it is, and talented, because that's curiosity, that's intellectual curiosity.
Yeah, we need to get this in, or you need to amend it, because it made it sound like I was dissing econ folks. Well, I was trying to contrast it. The person gets a thesis there versus the run-of-the-mill econ person. And by the way, the econ kids, we're competing against Goldman Sachs for them. And Goldman Sachs has probably latched onto them in their freshman or sophomore year.
Right.
So almost by definition, we're going to have what's called adverse selection. If the econ major is still around,
so you have to
they're less likely to be amazing. We got many amazing econ majors. The trick to getting the great ones who would fit in our system would be if they can display something like, my spare time, I really like reading Russian literature. It's like something that...
Right, so those hybrid candidates.
Yeah, that I like the qualitative, not just the things where there is an answer to it.
I think that is a great segue into, did you ever take a chance on someone who didn't look right on paper?
I never didn't do that.
Yeah.
I mean, it was kind of like...
Every time. Well, then did you ever take a chance on somebody that did look completely right?
Of course. And that's what I'm saying. Like, there are, we did the vast majority of our hiring coming straight out of Princeton, and, the randomly selected Princeton student is stunningly amazing. So in many ways, they all look good on paper. But if you're looking at people who said something like, I grew up knowing I wanted to invest, and I just want to do this. When we did hire those, we got some great ones. I actually once did I once took a piece of paper and made a 2x2 matrix of candidates that worked out well or didn't, versus came from traditional investment majors versus didn't. And, no hiring system's perfect, and sometimes you knowingly hold your nose and bring on someone because, you need a certain number of players on the field, and it wasn't a great vintage for the recruiting. And what I found is that the numbers of amazing stars were equal. They were equally represented in the traditional versus non-traditional. But in the non-traditional, we were able to predict better if they were going to be amazing.
Because you do the other way around.
Right. Well, the ones that didn't work out, it was much more common in the non-traditional that we were kind of like, yeah, I guess we'll take him. Right. Becomes a little bit more intuitive when you think about the people who were from the traditional backgrounds. They had trained for that interview for a long time. They knew how to ask.
So you're not really seeing them.
Right. Whereas, the math major, the music, the religion major,
they're out of
they're like
comfort zone.
And they're like processing this real time. And they're saying like,
right.
Wait, that's pretty interesting what you said. So then how do you think about this? If that's true, then how do you think about this? And that's where you say, okay, well, that's actually really clock speed, not hard disk.
How do you take all these different types of backgrounds and personality types and make a cohesive team? And
where they reward each other, as you mentioned at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
That you want those two people to inspire each other. So
yeah, there was some social engineering involved. We all sat in one big room, and that meant the senior team alongside the junior team, and that meant that it was visible, the kind of who's working well together.
You mean from your standpoint, that you could observe?
Yeah, that makes it sound like
Wizard of Oz.
Surveilling. Yeah, I'm saying it's a little bit more that there was familiarity, right? It's a little bit more that exemplifies that we were doing things in a team approach, the gang tackle.
And not to be afraid of your
right
superiors.
So we weren't, and not to be afraid of superiors. And so they also got to see the real-time discussions. And then when we had to make formal decisions, we all got up from that one casual space and we went to a formal board. And everyone from the 22-year-old up had to vote on every major decision and then discuss essentially their vote. So you got a little bit more, almost seminar-like experience.
So the same group that was in the communal space would then go to the board.
Yeah, because we had to make it
official.
Yeah.
Going back to sort of being credited with having this creative approach, it seems so logical, but it was different. But it's different.
Yeah.
So, what gave you the empowerment to, aside from what you were sanctioned to do from your job point of view, but what made you feel sure that this was going to be the right approach?
So, as I mentioned before, I think the right way to do anything really depends on lots of factors, right? It is obvious, yet people don't give it enough weight. The allocator job, more so than many others, involves just making a fairly small set of important decisions over the course of a year. And so you actually have the time to be inefficient. And people are so wired to being efficient, and it's natural. If you embrace inefficiency, then you can give more attention to multiple agendas at the same time. And in reality, whatever we're doing, there actually are multiple agendas. So my other favorite word might have been framing, right? And people will say, well, what's the right framing of this? And I always bristle, no. What are the important, what's the important set of frames? I talked about our decision making, about everyone getting in the room, and that sounds like it's about getting to the right decision. But that was also about teaching. That was also about giving people reps, as they would say, or at-bats, of actually having to make it.
In a less formal way.
Yeah,
So
in a less...
it's almost like a spoonful of sugar with your medicine. Like you don't even know that you're taking the medicine. You're just learning.
Yeah.
Because you're...
Yeah, it's really kind of like you're really simulating playing with live ammunition, but you 22-year-old, you're not really like, like
Right.
we're not,
We got
you know,
this.
what we say is everyone had to vote on everything, but the votes were counted in an obscure secret algorithm up in my head that was, like everything else in my head, unstable and changed. But we still wanted people to step up. So the reason I was able to operate is because the way I did, the reason why it was possible to do this approach was, again, that we had inherently, it was going to be okay to be inefficient. And then we guided the portfolio to open up even more space. There's so many folks who feel
It's
like,
an
I've got to
interesting
know.
thing that having the space for inefficiency is very underrated.
Yeah, I've always liked the Neil Young lyric, there's a lot to learn for wasting time.
Yeah.
I've always liked that phrase. Sorry to interrupt you.
Well, no, I'll re-interrupt you by saying that I do feel like we experience that here a lot. I mean, there's lots of conversations that are seemingly without purpose that end up with purpose. And I think when you have an environment where it's okay to say we're going to chat about something completely irrelevant for 15 minutes, a lot of times those conversations, there's little takeaways that we aren't even measuring that come. And even just for the team getting to know each other and understanding each other's strengths and where certain creativity pockets lie, it's really hard to do that in an orchestrated way.
Right. So I think it's one of the issues with remote work. And,
I agree. I mean, we would be sunk.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah. And there are, again, some things that you can do remotely better than other
Of course.
things. But a lot of times it works as well as it does because you're kind of drawing down on capital, so to speak, that was built up in a pre-remote
Right.
time. And so people who only know remote work are going to be handicapped in, say, management positions, right? Because when it works best is when the assignment can be very well specified. So you know exactly what a correct answer looks like. You know, so in art, I don't see how you do that. And that, I'm sure there's pieces that are made collaboratively, remotely, that have something interesting going on. But so it can work, but this is where we're getting dangerously close to Miles Davis, right? It's about the notes you don't play as much, and knowing what not to do,
Right.
is important, and that's much harder when everything's transactional. Right? I'm just going to do exactly what you tell me.
Right.
Right? So it may mean that I actually have to over-assign things because I'm not really sure until,
Right.
my sense of the way artists tend to work, when I try to be one, is like you iterate.
Right.
Right?
Like if someone were to say to you, when is this going to be done? How do you give that answer? I guess unless you've been working as an artist in a very practical way for a very long time.
But I wanted to go back to and touch on really quickly the group setting. And you talked about framing and, like having the junior staff react, vote, and then explain their votes. Were you ever convinced? You said that you had a abstract calculation in your head. I'm not saying that you and your senior team already knew how you were going to go. You might have already had, well, we're going to do this no matter what they say. But were you ever convinced by what a junior staff might have said and how they framed it?
I think there are important things that happen, but that's before the vote. So what we did, the people would come in, they'd write down on a piece of paper what their vote was, having read the materials, but before the discussion. And then they'd write it down again at the end, and then we all reveal our votes at the same time. And the voting system itself was compressed. It was either you were for or against, and you could modify being for or against by so-called pounding the table. And literally sometimes pounding the table. So it was never going to be like, oh, we're going to add up 24
Yeah,
times
okay.
10 numbers.
Yeah.
Right.
But there were questions raised along the way that were moving. And the other thing about the process I'm describing as if the only meeting on that decision was that final
Yeah.
formal meeting.
Yeah.
There were meetings all along
Right.
the way,
So you're much closer
several
to
times
it.
a
Yeah.
week.
Right.
And so things had come up earlier about, well, why don't we look at it this way? And there are times when
It's kind of like in a jury, like the very first raw vote, as opposed to after all the conversations have happened.
Yeah. I
it's also
appreciate
like
that.
the
As
first several juries, in other words,
Right.
a decision ultimately would take place over 8 weeks, and that item had been discussed, therefore, probably 8 times before
Right.
the actual.
I appreciate that. Yeah. I was thinking about the compressed version versus the long drawn out version of that. Well, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but I thought it was an interesting question. Did you ever think about investing in art? Like, did you ever take Princo and say, why don't we invest in a portfolio of art or because I know you're talking about investing in people that, capitalists or whatever, firms, agents or whatever that then invest somewhere else. But, the artwork there's a great return on investment for some artwork.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to know if you ever thought about doing.
No, there are things that we don't do that are closer to mainstream investing that we don't do for the same reason we don't do art. And that is, it's hard to understand what the true economic value is of something. So it is almost like a flip on the famous Oscar Wilde about person knows the price of everything but knows the value of nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in econ we talk about the actual intrinsic value, and if a investment strategy is underperforming, let's say people are going to buy something and it hasn't gone up as much or it's gone down, but you say, well, look, it's gone down, but the underlying economic value has stayed the same or maybe gone up, so it's just a mispricing.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Then you can stick with that despite the fact that it didn't do well. When something like Bitcoin
Mm-hmm.
or even gold, right, when the value fluctuates, and so therefore something like art, when the price fluctuates, it's hard to tether that to an economic value. There are people who make a lot of money trading cycles and things, but for us to evaluate, are they good at that, is...
How do you feel
there's
about
no-
it personally?
How do I feel? Sorry,
On a personal level, how do you feel about it?
about buying art?
Investing in art, yes.
Well,
Not just buying art, investing, like in art as an investment.
I mean, it has no interest to me because I actually care about the intrinsic value. So the aesthetic intrinsic value is like this. Again, for other assets, they ultimately create a series of cash flows, so you can compare those to
Right.
similar generators of cash. So you can say, is that price driven? For art, that makes it difficult, but it's confusing. I think a lot of people have the same issue, because their biggest asset is their house. Selling that asset to realize the value has a lot more going on than it does than selling, shares of
Right.
Meta, of Alphabet, right? And so I'm not sure why I would want to do that. It's like...
Yeah, it seems like it's kind of its own whole world and its own whole mindset.
I mean, it's. I think Roland Barthes had a comment about. I think he called it punctum, the emotional response to the photograph. He wrote a short essay, a book on photography, and a French philosopher who I'm not a big. Since we talked about French earlier, but
this
that's
is, on Seeing.
It was this one was Camera Lucida.
Okay.
And he talked about studium, which is sort of I think that was the term, a classical study of the artwork, composition. That seems to me like that would have been, I know nothing about investment, but that's kind of the investment side of it, versus punctum, which was the emotional reaction that you have to the work. And although he went along to say this is how.
Quantum?
Yeah, and he talked about it being through this philosophy. He determined there was no real reason, and everything was construction, and there was no truth, or So it went down to a weird place, but it started from a beautiful place because it was an emotional response that he was having to a photo of his mother. His mother had just died, and he was having a sort of reaction to that. And so it seems to me that that those are the two sides of what we were talking about in terms of this investment, this academic sort of, or not academic, but a studied rational response to something versus with the collecting, it's an emotional response that you're having with the artwork. And I'm curious one's a transactional response. You're investing other people's money to make them money, on markets and stuff like that, versus, you're having an emotional response to a work of art. And that's why you want to invest in not invest, but buy that so that you can recreate that sensation, recreate that experience, and also maybe support an artist along the way. But it's, it's two very different experiences.
Oh, look, I'm all in favor of buying art. I wish I had more capacity to buy art, to live with it. It's a very different experience to live with something than to have to go see it.
Right.
And
so you
the question.
Sorry. So for instance, you'd love to be able to buy, Marcel Duchamp's The Fountain.
Yeah, I wish I could afford it. I'm not
I don't know
sure I
if
would
there
spend
is
it on
anyone
that.
who could
Yeah,
afford it.
yeah.
Can anybody afford it? What's the value of it, right? There's no way to.
Well, there is a price apparently. But
It's a hefty one.
I don't think that. I guess Philadelphia must own that. The Philadelphia Museum must own that piece. That's the urinal that's on the side.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry to interrupt you. You're going to say
No idea what I was going to say. In fact, I have no idea what I said. In fact,
But I feel like maybe perhaps it is a little nice for you to leave the Princo conversation because you left Princo.
I did.
According to the Princetonian article I read forever ago, when you began your term at Princo, if it was called that at the time, the endowment was 3.5.
Yep.
And today,
Which is that's like a dinner bill.
Yeah.
That's a lot of cash.
I'm just kidding, of course.
That's a lot of cash.
Huge amount of cash.
But it's insignificant to where they were at when you did finally retire.
It had peaked at about 35, so there was essentially a 10x, 10 multiple, and then it came down in my last years as markets were not generous, and I had gotten too defensive too early, and so we were spending more than we were returning, so that it came down from that 35.
But that is an incredible amount of money, and I'm curious, the 3.5. What was the model that you were using that was so different from the asset allocation model that you sort of were steeped in at the very beginning of your career? How did they get to the 3.5? Was it through investing, or was it just through great generous donations at that point? And then what did you learn along the way to do that 10x? Which is, it's staggering to even think about.
Pretty staggering.
Yeah.
And we're talking, I can't do the math, 30 years, yeah.
Yeah, I kind of wonder at what point do those numbers just not feel real anymore? But anyway,
pretty soon we're talking real money.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but that.
So Princeton has had generous donors. Go to the baker, you can't make a great loaf if you don't start with dough. Mm-hmm. So they had dough to invest. I thought I'd get a bigger laugh out of that.
I'm trying.
Sorry.
There's been a couple.
I'm just trying to keep up intellectually, so I'm struggling.
We've had a couple analogies where I'm just like, are we joking here, or are we? I didn't want to,
Yeah.
No dad jokes. No dad jokes.
Yeah, but Princeton had also been blessed by amazingly successful investing in the 20th century in a model that could not be replicated. There is lore about, what was true was that for the bulk of that time, for at least the first half, there was a single trustee who was in charge of making all decisions.
How far back are we talking now? That
Well,
seems like
I'll tell you,
crazy model.
the lore is that there's a guy whose I think first name was because it was referred to as the legendary Dean Matty. And if you go down the street here, there's in the Y,
Right.
there's
Yeah.
Dean Matty tributes and things. And
Our building.
The
Matthew.
yeah. And the lore is that he got the university completely out of stocks kind of in like 27, 28, before the crash, because he didn't have perfect vision.
Okay.
And then got back in shortly after World War II. And so,
Where did he put it? Just before we get too far, he took it out of stocks and put it into
people
savings bonds.
I don't know, something.
Wow.
Something.
Okay.
under the mattress.
Yeah.
That's smart. Yeah.
It's actually hard to find real documentation of that. But what is documentable is the next guy, in those days it was only guys, made a loan to this guy named Kroc and got royalties on every hamburger McDonald's sold for some period of time.
Wow.
And so there was this idea that great people need to be unleashed, unfeathered, and they can do great things. And that evolved into a model where there was a kind of recognition that it was somewhat bordering imprudent to have it done by a particular person who couldn't be fired that easily. So there's this move towards using outside managers, a very small set, who were again chosen essentially by one person.
And not university employees.
Those people tended to be
Trustee.
more like trustee levels.
Okay.
I'm myself am a little cloudy on, at the very end, there was a guy who was serving as, I think, was what's called the treasurer of the university. It was a paid staff member who I think was involved. At some point in 1987, there was an idea, well, we should probably have some professionals dedicated just to this. And that was, Princo was created. And there was great pains taken to make it seem like it was separate from the university because...
And so what year? About what year?
That's 1987.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
And before that, it was just a few trustees and maybe a few personnel before Princo.
Yeah, I mean, the personnel were really back office types. It was, so Princo, there was a notion that we should get some professionalism into the decision making as well, but every decision had to flow through to the chair of what was now called the Princo board.
Okay. Which weren't also serving on the board of the university? It was a separate board entirely?
Well, when Princo was formed, it was formed in part to allow for there to be overlap with the trustees, but you would also open up some slots for experts beyond what was on it. And that was a brilliant move because there are 40 university trustees, which is a large number, but it's a finite number. And if you can only draw investment talent from people who are already on the board, then to get the right amount of investment talent, you're going to have to overweight those folks on the board. And a lot of other schools do that.
And were they doing that?
No,
already?
No, because it was such a small group involved in the investment management that you could have a more diversity of talent,
right,
or of occupations. The first president of Princo would have no trouble with me saying, because he would say it himself, that he was chosen in part because he didn't have that much investment experience. It was a compromise between the first chair of Princo and the university president. So the first...
So you're coming in with a little bit of a lighter touch.
Well...
more moldable.
His name, and again, he would say this publicly. His name was Dennis Sullivan, and Dennis Sullivan is so much smarter than I could ever hope to be. And he had been a super able aide to Bill Bowen, to the president. So Bill knew that this guy was smart, and he was acceptable to the chair because the chair thought
so it worked all around.
Yeah. And Bill then left for Mellon Foundation, and Dennis followed him. So the second president was a guy named Randy Hack, who, within the first couple of sentences, he explained to me that 17 members of his family had gone to Princeton, right? So again, a very known quantity. But the chair of the Princo board at the time was a guy named Dick Fisher, who was CEO and chair of Morgan Stanley, and he too was acting as chief investment officer, all decisions. And Randy recognized that among the things that Dick was trying to do were things that couldn't be done in that decision model. So he constructed this idea as a kind of smart compromise as to how to grab some of the reins and say all these things involving private investing.
It's a dance. I mean,
yeah. So he created a outside entity that was given the contract to manage a quarter of the endowment, and he took all the Princo staff essentially with him, all but one, and that created a need for a new Princo president, which is how I arrived.
So about 7 years after Princo is formed,
Right.
7 or 8, you
Yeah.
show up.
I show up.
Okay.
And
And that's second or third president after it was started. Second president. Heck was the. Was after
I was the third president. So
Oh, okay.
Sullivan, Hack,
heck.
and then me.
Okay.
Same deal. Every decision had to flow through Dick Fisher, and in fact, he would interview the managers themselves. Right.
And how much interaction did you have with the first two presidents, or how much
Well,
mentoring or?
Randy's firm that he started was in the same building as Princo, so
So a lot of interaction.
All the employees just went down to the next level.
and
Easy move.
Dennis, amazingly brilliant, amazing, generous with his time, a good bit.
Mellon Foundation, is that out of Pittsburgh or is that New York? Oh,
No, that's New York.
Okay.
Yeah. So part of my deal in the first couple of years was to work to change the governance, the delegation of authority. And so in 98,
Which is a dicey.
yeah. And it helped that in those days, I still thought of myself as a guy who had done photography and is doing investing, but I wasn't like an investor. I was just someone who happened to be doing investing. So I was more willing to take career risk at that time and came close on several occasions to being shown the door because of it. But serendipity kept me here.
When did you? Was there a time when you started feeling less empowered to take risks?
Yeah, when I began to have my ego be much more about my business card, like
Right.
see what the big
The
deal I am.
numbers. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's a interesting thought experiment. Did my experience create more skill that counteracted this, loss of psychological advantage?
That's a whole other podcast.
yeah.
Yeah. So in '98 we were empowered, and then in 2000 they brought the other quarter back in, so we were fully empowered across the entire.
The quarter they segmented out.
Right.
And that was segmented out for who to manage?
So Randy Hack,
Okay.
and he partnered with a guy named John Quigley, who
Okay.
still lives in town, and it was a privately owned external group, but it was an experiment that they said we're going to give this 5 years, and I think it did. National Capital did a great job. Princo had gotten to a point where some of the reasons for having a Nassau Capital, a more sensible decision process, well, that was now true within Princo, and there was an inherent disadvantage of having these activities separate. So,
Cool.
yeah.
Well, it's funny. I'm listening to this, and part of my brain is saying ancient history,
Yeah, it is.
but the other part is like this isn't that long ago. And if
No,
you
this-
think about
in the scheme of things, this is
25 years ago, so it's
But you think about Princeton as Princeton. Like all
This
we
is
know
recent-
is Princeton is
recent
Princeton.
history.
But in 1995, Princeton wasn't Princeton, and Bob Hillier often talks about this sleepy town. Up into the 80s, it was this sort of sleepy town. So let me ask you this: in 87, there's no records, right? But in 87, what was the endowment then?
It was probably about $2 billion.
Okay, so it was in the billions. Okay, I wasn't even sure. So, what happened in the markets, or what happened in society, or what happened in, in college endowment organizations to make people all of a sudden feel a social or a responsibility to take it away from one trustee and create, what's the bureaucratic?
Well,
impetus
Princeton
for
was an
that?
outlier. I mean, there had been a Yale office being run by staff
Oh,
that predated Dave Swenson arrived in '85, but there was a chief investment officer prior to him, and Princeton was an outlier in
Okay.
a lot of ways.
okay.
You can ask why, what were the forces behind that? I think the most notable is an attitude of it wasn't broke, so why fix it, right?
Yeah.
And that was something that was pretty interesting to me arriving, like, well, how do you get people to say maybe we should shut the gate before the horse leaves the corral? And that's a part of the problem with investing. Part of the challenges is success can be summarized with a single number, and because it's numeric, quantifiable, it speaks much more loudly than anything else. There's an idea that good results imply good decision making, or bad results imply a mistake was made.
And is that not the case?
No, because we're dealing with probabilities, right? And so if I offered you a bet and you somehow mistakenly believed I was a good credit, I was going to follow through on my promise, and I said, we'll flip a coin, and if it comes up tails, I'm going to give you $5. And if it comes up heads, you're going to give me $1. Do you want to do that? You should take that bet, right? The odds, so to speak, are in your favor. The odds time payout are in your favor. If it comes up heads and you got to give me the $1, that was a bad result for you, but doesn't mean it was a bad decision, right?
Right.
So I had these fantasies that in my retirement I would more formally explore what has always been a pastime for me to think about is how do we think about, meaning after the fact, decision evaluation as opposed to before the fact decision making. Many courses taught us to how to make better decisions, but you really can't learn how to make better decisions if you're not analyzing well what the decision is. And it gets even more complicated when it's in a multi-party, like political situation, like a board, where you gotta have such a compelling argument that all those people have the natural tendency to do what's called resulting, to believe that the result speaks to the quality of the decision making. That you can keep them holding on when the results haven't been good, and much more difficult get them to change, even though the real results have been good.
So should we speak a little bit about retirement? And have you had a chance to
retire?
Or to explore some of these concepts that you didn't have a chance to take?
No, I
the time and space.
I failed retirement. I am failing
Wow.
retirement, but there's always tomorrow. The decision algorithm that I used to become a philosophy major. Oh, that's a great, interesting person. I want to spend more time with him. Professor David Ross. I used that before I retired to commit to several things. And they're all great, but they're consuming too much time, and the switching costs between this activity and the other activity, particularly these things are located all over the world. And then losing all the infrastructure of, when your day is completely open as opposed to knowing that you have to be in this location at this time. it's challenging to get a rhythm. I'm starting to get that
So I
rhythm.
think some of the things we want to talk about were a little bit about the creativity and curiosity that can blossom from this time, but you haven't really gotten to
Yeah, I've
having
been,
that
you can see that I've been completely uncreative. You can see the whole reason I agreed to do this podcast though was to plug my Instagram account.
Okay.
All right, let's do it. Let's do it.
So it's Sparky_Golden. Sparky like the dog's
I feel like
name.
this is a shtick right now. I don't know.
And I ask that the listeners
Okay.
understand that for a couple of years now, having painted myself into the corner, I work in triptychs. So the Instagram pictures are meant to be viewed as the rows of the profile page, not as
Wow.
individuals.
Okay. This is some creativity and
Yeah. So
free thinking space.
Adam is trying to get in. I have to admit you in.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's see.
And this is always a great podcast technique to talk about things that people can't see.
And just long silences of people looking at their phone.
No. We're not looking at our phones. We're pretending. See, there's no video here.
I'm not getting signal here.
There's no service in this building. We're in the black hole. It's purposeful. It's purposeful. So
then we're not gonna be able to see it, but it's fantastic.
Let me see.
Wait, that's purposeful?
I just requested.
No, but I can't honor your request because I can't get. Okay.
That's in the building.
All right. So I did that. Do I have to agree to any terms?
Wait, can you not edit this out? Because this is hilarious.
No, I just got to edit out the company I just listed. Oh, let me go back.
Here comes Adam Welch. Confirm.
We're doing this in real time.
I would like to make this request, but it seems way too complicated.
Well, what
there it
I
goes.
can
Okay, there it
do
goes.
is I can.
Oh, I see what he's doing. That's why you had to.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why we had to look at it.
So
Live.
you've never seen this?
No.
Wow.
I'm the worst
I don't
social
know if she
media
has
person of
Instagram.
all time.
Not sure. He'll show you yours. There.
Wait, that sounds.
So this is so what we're looking at here is the Instagram feed, and it's in triplicate. So it's each row is your triptych.
Right.
Current photography.
Yeah, I mean
Your current photography.
It's I guess we'd call it photography. It's iPhone stuff.
iPhone. Okay.
I'm just.
Love it.
Yeah. No, this is great.
Yeah.
Great use of light.
Well,
Everybody, check it out.
The listeners are really.
Yeah.
Now,
having a great time.
If you
Put in a little
if you
music background here.
They
scroll
don't have
down
whiskey
to,
or photography.
Whiskey. Did you have any whiskey?
I sure did.
well, it's after lunch. So this one I'm going deeper in because these pictures show a little bit of hand manipulation.
Yeah. I thought I saw something.
I love it.
Yeah, that is done through an app that may still exist called Paper that allows you to overwrite things.
Oh, okay. This is paper.
Yeah.
All right, so you brought this up.
Cool.
You plugged this. You brought this up. The question was, we were talking a little bit about, are you going to start exploring
Creativity.
and you said that you went into some consultant work, which is based on the same line of work that you did before.
Yeah, I'm working with 3 different investment organizations.
Worldwide, I guess.
Worldwide, circling the globe, the thrill of victory, the agony of defeat. And the remit is mostly, but not exclusively, about talent acquisition, development, kind of business strategy as opposed to investment decision making.
Do you feel like that's your strong suit? Or is that the public's view of what your strong suit is?
I think it is something I'm pretty good at, and it's what interests me most.
So that works
Right.
well.
Yeah.
I feel like you're going back to Yale management school here.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
In a way, you went full circle.
And a little philosophy in there, too.
Yeah, you went full circle, and now you're trying to take what you've learned as a leader in business and then teach these companies that didn't go to Yale
Or
Business
what you're
School.
intrinsically drawn to and always have been, that stays the same.
Yeah, I have been blessed it's almost an accident that I've ended up being in rooms with extraordinarily successful people.
Oh, thank you.
And
He's talking about today. At the end of the career,
Oh,
it's
stop.
today
Seriously.
that
yeah, and I like
No,
to.
that is a lovely.
This is Adam and Liza on Andy's podcast.
Yeah, I like to run a diversified portfolio, so I've also been in rooms with other types. And
no, I didn't mean to interrupt that because that's actually it's really.
And in fact, it goes back to college, where I met my first truly rich person. I grew up in New Jersey in a small, not thriving town called South River, same town my father grew up. My father was the local dentist. My elementary school classmates, most typically neither of the parents had gone to college, rarely had both, my parents. And I kind of felt like we were royalty, because my father was a professional and,
In juxtaposition.
yeah. And then I went off to school and, met some serious,
Real.
movers and shakers, and became friendly, very close with one particular family. And I realized rich people are people too. That allowed a framing of, well, how do they think about issues? And recognizing that if you have experience with enough folks who have reached these heights, then you can be helpful to the people who are getting there and say, you're not the first person to feel like an imposter, right? And you're not the first person on the opposite to think that it was all skill that got you here.
Right.
And you're not the first person to worry about how their kids are going to develop in the face of your fame, and you're not the first person to have kids who struggle with that. Maybe you should ratchet back this language at the dinner table about excellence and things, and try and. I learned from my own mistakes. That it was benefit of hindsight. I think there were some things that when my kids were young, that I wish I had emphasized trying more over success.
Yeah.
I do feel like that is much more implicit now in parenting than it was before. That allowing for vulnerability and not assuming that the highest markers, the highest traditional markers are the successful markers. But I feel like as a parent, I still didn't understand those nuances.
Yeah. I think there's lots of cycles, and some of this, evolution or, awakening gets implemented in ways that are counterproductive. It's, the extreme would be the participation trophy phenomenon of actually trying is important, but not everything has to be immediately, lauded.
You tried a tiny bit.
Yeah. You just,
because your parents made you.
Yeah. But you need to develop the internal sense of, I am glad that I tried, as opposed to I'm trying because I get this cool
Trophy.
Right.
trophy. Yeah.
I'm not even sure that kids really cared that much about the trophies. I don't know, whatever. That's a whole other topic.
Yeah, I guess it's the parents that want their kid to feel like a winner.
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
But it is kind of full circle on this philosophy of really thinking about a team that you put together and the personalities in that team and what you're looking for in those people. And I don't know if that's a trend that's more mainstream now, but it does seem to me like it's still about the numbers on your resume and the school on your resume.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I don't mind revealing that I actually really do believe in DEI. Come and get me, Donald.
Yeah.
I believe it's a good thing. And I think an important vector of progress on that is learning how to look at different markers. And it can be something as simple as don't look at GPA, look at progress, right? Because otherwise, if you've come from a less advantaged background and you really blow it your freshman year, that's going to get averaged in your GPA.
Right.
So that it'd be a shame to say, and this is important for society, but it's also aesthetically pleasing to figure out how to get the truth that is somewhat hidden in the data, right? So, if someone struggled in their, 2 years into it, but ended up getting a really good mark on their thesis, not even a prize, but a really good mark, and importantly, can then talk enthusiastically about the ideas in that
right.
where you see they
right.
have really learned something, right? Because again, you're putting together a team. Even in the case of surgeons, you need for them to be able to learn, right? There's going to be progress.
Right. Yeah.
And so another favorite word would, it's about learning and growth and development.
We should have asked you the favorite word
At the end.
periodically throughout.
Yeah.
Well, we got 3.
We have gotten a few. Yeah.
I mean, onomatopoeia is always a good one, right?
Yeah.
It's just like,
It's just fun.
It just rolls off the tongue.
Do you want to ask any last retirement questions? Because really, they went out the window. We were hoping to talk about what are you listening to, but
You want
Instagram
my
account.
desert island?
Yeah. What books? What
we
camera?
did get the
books.
Instagram account, and that does show signs of
Progress.
in retirement. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
think we need more triptych
I also
stuff.
want to plug one of the most exciting photographers I've ever met. His name is Elliot Golden.
Yes.
He's my son who's
That
finishing
name
up.
sounds so familiar.
Finishing up his MFA at RISD, and
Wow.
his work of art would be worth 10 times. Because we go back to investing. So if you want to invest in art,
Nice. Okay, so do invest in art. Is what
do
you're saying.
do
Okay, but very specific.
Studio,
art.
no punctum.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No punctum.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations to Elliot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to jinx it. He's got 3 more weeks or whatever. So
I mean, okay. Well, we're not time stamping this, so hopefully by the time people are hearing this, we can say, congratulations, Elliot, you did it.
yeah, and just to be sure, because I'm a good parent, his older brother Jake is creative in his own way.
Okay. Yeah, we won't forget about Jake.
Jake is helping create a very interesting AI company that actually improves efficiency.
I think it's okay. There's a lot of positive AI.
Yeah.
It's a mixed bag. We know that, but I don't think anyone's discounting that there are some pretty spectacularly amazing things that are happening. So congratulations.
And that would be him. And wow, as long as we're mentioning my kids, there's my favorite child.
Listen,
I'm allowed to say that
was
my daughter-in-law Noelle, who
okay.
Daughter-in-law.
yeah.
The favorite child, yeah.
My favorite child is my daughter-in-law.
Who is a MSW trained counselor and is finding interesting ways to express that in London.
Wonderful. We need more Noels, for sure.
I think the first Noelle is the one that's really
We get one every year.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts?
No,
Okay.
I feel good.
All
Do
right.
you? What was the question you wished we would ask you?
That's a good question.
What is your skincare regimen?
Let us hear it.
Because listener, we have to say,
Let us hear
he
it.
is glowing.
Yeah, you look fabulous.
I feel like, we didn't even stay close.
No, but that's the problem with some of these.
Okay, can we just do one last one?
No.
But no, one last one. This is it. But I feel like this was a good one.
Well,
No, I don't see it on the list, but what is something you know now that 20 years ago,
Oh
I don't know
yeah.
how you phrased it.
What is something you know now that you wish you knew then?
Okay, I felt like you had a more sophisticated way of saying it, but that's the nut.
Yeah.
Well, I was so much older then. I'm younger than that now.
Right.
So what I wish I knew then. So this actually was a meaningful moment for me, turning 60 a few years ago. And I was pretty wigged out approaching it. And then on the actual day, I looked around my family, the branch of my family that lives in London, not my son, my brother, and his family was over. We were all at our happy place on Long Beach Island. And I looked around and I thought, you know what? I won. And before anyone gets up in arms and that, it wasn't like I beat everyone else. I meant I won
For yourself.
like solitaire. Like, you know, the rules were out and, you know, I cleared all the cards. And I thought, you know, there's a certain kind of calm that comes with that. I wonder what it would have been like at 40 to act as if I already had won. You know, to not worry about
to calm
getting
down a little bit.
blindsided by bad luck, to not worry about messing up, to just say, well, it's actually going to work out as long as you keep trying. You know, so I wished that I had the ability to take the actions I took with less of the hand wringing
and more of the
concern.
satisfaction.
Yeah, and more of the satisfaction, for sure.
That's. I mean, I love the idea of figuring out a way to bottle and sell that, because that is true value.
Yeah, and I talk a lot to young students. I still guest in a freshman seminar every year, where, believe it or not, it's a condensed version of the story I told you about how I got to where I was, because I'm trying to tell these students to not get so hung up on taking the right course and doing the right thing, and there's more follow what I like to call is follow your like, not follow your passion, which is what every old person says, and it's really
right. Because then your life will be perfect and you'll have the job you want.
Yeah, but it also presumes that you know what your passion is, and you know, passion usually
it could be
grows.
It doesn't drawing you today.
Yeah,
This is the journey versus the trip conversation.
This is the journey versus the trip.
Again, the trip is the tie-dyed version. This is not the athleisure wear.
No, this is your old sweatpants.
This is It's the trip, man. You got to. It's Apocalypse Now. You got to think about the characters coming down saying, "He's amazing, man. It's a trip, man." Anyway.
Follow your like. Follow your like.
Follow your like, and the idea is that if you don't get the prize, you still enjoyed the trip. And then
and it doesn't
at
devalue
times
the trip.
Can talk about one of my heroes, which is my middle brother, who, I just asked the class. I said, so he was an academic psychiatrist. He went on to become dean of a medical school, and but as an academic psychiatrist, he had this achievement of becoming the youngest ever department chair at the school he worked at UNC. And then he went on as the department chair to take what was I believe, like high teens ranked department as measured by this objective measure amount of NIH funding, and got it up to kind of high single digits. I don't remember the exact numbers. And, there's a certain ceiling that you're not going to displace Harvard, Yale Medical School.
Golden boys.
Yeah. And then I just ask, as I asked myself, which of those two achievements do you think matters more, general, and which of those two do you think matters to him more? And it's kind of like nice to be the youngest, right? Look at me. But it's kind of what you do with it, right? And I think so many people get caught up in, I have to achieve this by X date. And it's like, pick one or the other.
Right.
Why tie
Surviving to
him?
this date is maybe a good thing.
Yeah, So you became department chair 3 years later, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe in those 3 years you learned more that enabled you to take it up, but it's still another, ranking.
Right.
I don't know. So,
Right. I like it. I think the trip versus the journey is our takeaway.
Yeah.
If we're
I
going
think we
to
need-
take
we-
it down to 4 words.
We need to parse.
Yes.
And I feel like TRIP, makes reference to the acid tests, which
Okay.
was inherently a communal thing.
Okay.
And Journey
This is getting very...
feels more
Ken
like
Kesey.
go out, young warrior, and find your path to consciousness.
Find your life.
Yeah. But that is much more self-centered. I think TRIP, even though you're literally expanding your own mind, it feels more communal than
It does.
and also counter-cultural, whereas Journey,
Right.
for no fault of its own, has become,
Not the greatest.
it's a
Yeah.
little bit of a privileged
Yeah.
term.
Yeah,
No,
it's nice
that's
to have a
true.
journey.
That's true.
Yeah, we'd all like one.
If we didn't have to
Some of
work.
us are just exactly. Some of us have that day-to-day trip that we're on.
Yeah. Well, we did just find out last week that humanoids, up until cell phones, used to spend a half of their day in daydream.
Yes.
Daydreaming.
And daydream.
And
now we spend no time in daydream.
essentially not, because we consume our time with screens.
The example was, and this is from a university professor, Elizabeth Margulis. I always say it wrong. Sorry, Elizabeth. How you can even be in your kitchen washing your dishes, and you can put your phone on and watch something. Like it used to be that you just watch dishes and your mind's cycling or doing whatever it needs to do. But now you never need to have that.
And a lot of that is identity formation, right? Because so what would happen is your brain uses that time to consolidate, your experiences, and consolidate the way you think to create identity. And without that, you look at this. I'm not going to say, be the old person that looks at the young generation and say,
No, I will.
You guys aren't going to make
I'll
anything
take
of
over.
yourself, but. Essentially, they don't, maybe there's a correlation to what you said earlier about those who didn't build up the capital before they went remote, but those that are solely born into the remote work culture, haven't had the opportunity for that self-consolidation.
Yeah, it's one of the many unintended consequences. And, we should be wrapping up, I know, but to go back to the remote issue is, I remember reading an article not too long ago about people just saying, I want to get my work done so I can be with my friends. It's like, well, no matter what, even if it's remote, it's a third of your day, right? And it's a third of the day without friends, right?
Yeah.
So when you were,
Right.
coming to a central place, those distinctions were not as sharp.
And you didn't.
And-
you
and-
weren't.
and
You
in
were.
fact-
You were welcoming all the parts of the day equally, just expecting them.
Right. And it was often the source of your friends.
Right.
Yeah.
Of course.
And that meant there was more of a mixing, right? Because,
And it makes your life happier and more pleasant in every way.
yeah.
Wow. Well, we solved everything.
Most of the
Thank you,
problems.
Andy
Yeah.
Golden, for
Yes.
solving everything.
Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure.
Well, we'll have you back to talk about all the things
yeah,
that we
we've
didn't
got
get to.
miles to go.
We haven't
Miles
even
to go.
gotten to
I don't think we got to
Okay.
question 9.
Well, we
out of
haven't gotten your
30.
fourth word.
But again, it's
Yes.
Sparky_Golden at
Okay, yes.
Instagram.
And also
You
by
wanna-
Elliot Golden.
Yeah, you want to plug
Photos.
Elliot's?
I do want to plug Elliot's work.
I was going to say Instagram, but
His Instagram is OL_Eggart, EGGART.
right. All right. I think we're good.
Andy,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Thank you. This
Wow.
is fantastic.
Thank you for having me.
We'll do it again.
You know what? We did get to talk about my favorite subject.
Philosophy.
Me.
Yes.
Me.
Andy Golden.
Just talking.
Right.
This is the all
Maybe
Andy
that should
all
be
the
your favorite
time
word.
channel. Yeah.
Your favorite word is
Andy.
golden or Andy.
Yeah.
Andy.
Just
Both.
What
was the genre, or what were the individual philosophers that you were studying that were of interest to you?
Yeah, so I ended up, I was pure analytic,
Okay.
as opposed to political or anything else. And that was actually, in many ways,
Were
the
those
most helpful.
choices? Was that a choice?
It was a little bit teacher driven,
Yeah,
and it was a little
yes.
bit, but it was also the prevailing,
Right.
it's a little bit about the times. There was a very influential American philosopher named Quine, and there were teachers that I had who had, like one had his thesis advised by him, and that being said, the most advanced work I did was in Aristotelian ethics and philosophy of language and philosophy of science. And when you get into things like what actually, it's not as woo-woo as it sounds like, but what is truth? Like, how do we decide what's a good theory, scientific theory, and what's not? There are things that are so mind-blowing that it changes how you look at everything. So,
Who blew your mind, or what blew your mind?
within Quine's most famous book, which is called Word and Object, he talks about the radical translation paradox, which is if two organisms met each other and if they had a very different way of viewing the world, there'd be no way that they could ever understand each other. So, I'm presuming that you think that there are these objects and that at this time it was here and at this time it was there. But if you met an organism that actually doesn't think there's objects, there's just images in like a movie that just keep changing, then you couldn't have a conversation that said cork and
Right.
and the other organism doesn't say rah, rah, or whatever
Right.
Andromedans say, because they don't. It's like what I don't know.
There's no common language in which to understand. Yeah.
And that's an interesting to me concept. For me, a lot of times what happens is not the literal concept, but a kind of bastardization of it becomes more interesting, which is if I'm in a pretty different world than what I'm used to, how do I assess what's going on? And I mean, here's the example. My first trip to Japan, and I show up and I go into a public restroom and there's a crazy looking toilet. Right?
And you don't know how to use it?
Well, I kind of figured that out. But what I didn't know is, are all toilets in Japan like this?
Yeah.
Right.
Or is this, if a Japanese person walked in here, and I'm using the example now intentionally because like Chinese toilets have become all the rage because they've got like all these
Hot,
features,
cold, yeah.
hot, cold, and spritzes
I
that
don't know any of
become
this.
you don't travel in my circles. It's,
Not in your bathroom circles.
You haven't been to Japan, to experience public.
Or
maybe
to any bathroom in Japan, really, for that matter.
the more suitable for work one is that you show up to have a meeting, and the meeting is around like a coffee table, and you think that's a really weird, like, what's going on here? And then you go to the next meeting, it's around a coffee table as opposed to, and you say, oh, this must be
This is how they do
done.
it.
Right. And it's just like one of those things that when you are making judgments about things,
Right.
kind of holding back and saying, well, what is my belief causing this conclusion?
Well, you could see how that did shape a lot of your approaches to management styles, right? You coming to some understand, allowing for, as you say, DEI, diversity of backgrounds, because you had these experiences where like people understand the world slightly differently, and you have to form compassion when you approach these people. You can't just say, "This isn't a toilet, so I'm not going to use it," right? So it
Or I
opened your
don't meet at coffee tables.
yeah, and so in a way, like getting that when you got it right, it allowed you to understand that in order to meet with people, you have to give a little. I think maybe I don't know. It's interesting, though.
No, I think that kind of speaks exactly, I think, to your style, right? I mean,
Your skin regimen that we
your
didn't
skin
hear
regimen.
about.
Yeah, yeah.
That was a bait and switch.
what
If
we-
ever I got a bait and switch, don't you want to ask me about my skin regimen? But I'm not going to say it. Like,
We also completely did not talk at all about the comfort level of your chair.
thank you for listening. Open Studio is produced by Adam Welch and Liza Peck. Editing is by Adam Welch. Original score by Chris Harper. Special thanks to the Arts Council of Princeton crew. I'm Adam Welch.